On it. Good morning, class. Okay, class, good morning. We are resuming from where we had yesterday. Please confirm if the audio visual is clear. Please confirm to me that you can hear and see me properly. Class, is my audio visual clear to you? Can you hear and see me properly? Okay. Right. Now we start with our part. We are taking a look at what you call the right to information, and we are on our way to have an understanding of the RTI Act 2005. Let me put a bit of a summary as to what is the point about doing this. We've done section 3, section 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 and 11, right? These are the parts that we have covered in the RTI Act yesterday. We have covered to the point of, we have covered, for example, in section 10, we have covered about severability. This I had made you write. And in section 11, we have to cover about third party. I have given you an explanation of this whole thing called the information with regard to third party. Right? And we'll take a look at how to manage this part properly in writing. Okay, so you can put down the next part over here as section 11. Section 11, which is with regard to third party information. You can write it. Okay, third party information. Okay, start writing on this one, third party information. Start writing this, third party information. RTI Act makes provisions. RTI Act makes provision. RTI Act makes provision for protecting information for protecting information of a third party. Protecting information of a third party. Protecting information of a third party. protecting information of a third party, protecting information of a third party, which implies which implies that which implies that if an RTI application if an RTI application requests information about a third party, requests information about a third party, about a third party, requests information about a third party, if an RTI application requests information about a third party, about a third party, then the PIO, then the PIO, then the PIO must notify such third party, must notify such third party, must notify such third party about the request for information, about the request for information, must notify such third party about the request for such request for information, about the request for information, and the third party and the third party can raise objections, can raise objections to the release of such information, can raise objections to the release of such information. To the release of such information. Full stop. Okay, this is section 11 of the RTI Act. Just keep writing. In the cases of trade or commercial secrets, in the cases of trade or commercial secrets, in the cases of trade or commercial secrets, trade or commercial secrets, a third party information, a third party information, the cases of trade and commercial secrets, a third party information must be subjected in the context of personal protection versus public interest. Must be understood and must be subjected in the context of personal protection versus public interest. Personal protection versus public interest. And if the public interest outweighs public protection, if the public interest outweighs personal protection, the information must be revealed. The information must be revealed. The information must be revealed. Okay? Right? This is with regard to what we are taking a look at in section 11 about the third party information. Okay, just read it 1 second. Just pay attention to what you've written, read it, try to memorize it right now. Okay. So the next part that we come in the RTI, slowly and steadily we're covering this entire act, is the Chief Information Commission, right? A Central Information Commission, right? So let me just, for example, give you a sense of what it is. What you call an Information Commission. Okay. Now, the way it is structured is very simple. With regard to what you call the PIO, right? For example, you see, you have government departments everywhere, and you have many PIOs. As many there are government department as there are PIOs. Okay. Now, the idea of a commission, like Information Commission, is to act in a superintendence and control of all the PIOs. That's the point about the Information Commission. Okay, so Information Commission is a statutory body, which means that it has been created by the RTI Act. And it is understood to be independent and can take actions without any exercise of influence or coercion from the government of India or the departments, right? So in case a PIO is not giving the right information or is giving misleading information or is giving incomplete information, it is the duty of the Information Commission to, first of all, manage the conduct of the PIOs in the country. And second, if the PIOs are not able to look at what you can call the PIOs are not able to take their duties seriously and don't perform their actions responsibly, then it is the Information Commission who does act on their behalf to ensure that information is not compromised. Okay. So what is the function of the Information Commission? It is the direction and control of the PIOs in the country, right? And this kind of a centralized structure has been created over the PIOs. Now, as for example, Information Commission can be divided into two categories. You have Central Information Commission and the State Information Commission, depending upon the offices. So, for example, if you have a CPIO, you know it is going to be under the Central Information Commission. But if you, for example, have an SPIO, you know that it is going to be under the State Information Commission. Right? This is basically the way in which it is divided. Now, we are going to be concerned over here only to study about the Central Information Commission, which is also known as the CIC, as a statutory body. CIC as a statutory body is created by the RTI Act, and it is supposed to be in superintendent's direction and control of all the CPIOs in the country. Okay, the actions of the CPIO, the misconduct of the CPIO, the appeals from the CPIO, all of these things are going to be accountable, made accountable by the what you can call Central Information Commission, CIC. Okay, so with regard to the CIC, what do we have to read? First thing that we read with regard to the CIC is its composition. That what are the ways, or what are, let's say, if you have like a statutory body like CIC is somewhat similar to Chief Election Commission of India, or let's say the CAG, but it is not a constitutional body, it is a statutory body which is statutory objective. Okay, then we talk about powers, and then we talk about functions. In fact, we can bring powers and functions together in one understanding. And then we talk about, let's say for example, the amendments which have been made to the RTI Act, by which the CPIOs etc. are being regulated. Okay, so this is what we'll take a look at when we understand CIC. Yesterday I had told you that, for example, what we are looking at is the fact that you have a Central Information Commission, and Central Information Commission is composed of these three elements, and it is also a part of the RTI, but it is also one of the statutory bodies that we cover in the GS paper number 2. Okay, you get the sense? So let's take a look at the CIC. If you want, you can just take a look at this diagram before we move on to understand what we're talking about. If you want to take notes of this diagram, you can do it now. Okay, we're taking a look at the Central Information Commission. This is what we take a look at. CIC. Okay. The chapter 3 of the RTI Act deals with this concept of the CIC, Central Information Commission. Okay, so you have 12, 13 and 14, Constitution of the CIC, terms of office and conditions of service, removal of Chief Information Commissioner or the Commissioner or Information Commissioner, right? So this is what we basically take a look at. So first thing we target out is the Constitution of the Central Information Commission, Section 12. I hope that section 1, section 3 to section 11 are completely understood by you. We're moving up in the last part of what is the RTI Act, which is the CIC. Okay, let's take a look at this very simply and clearly. The Central Information Commission. Let's take a look at this. Constitution of Central Information Commission. We'll read together. The central government shall by notification in the official gazette constitute a body to be known as the Central Information Commission to exercise the powers conferred and performed the functions assigned to it under this act. The Central Information Commission shall consist of this, right? So first of all, let's take a look at what is known as a statutory body. It is mandatory for the central government to create a CIC, okay, because it says the central government shall. Okay, the central government may hota, so the CIC could be created for a purpose. Let's say if there was a need in the country that the information commissioners or the PIOs are not acting properly according to the advices which have been given to them, then it is possible for the what you can call the prime minister or the central government to create a central information commissioner. The Central Information Commission, right? So it is contingent upon a kind of a crisis situation, right? That's a temporary commission. But what you have is a statutory body which shall be created whether there is a crisis or not, and shall always exist to even look at any particular detail of a problem, right? If there are no problems at the PIO level, still there should be a Central Information Commission to look at each and every single problem that may arise. So it is a permanent commission which is to be of statutory nature. That's the first part of it. Okay. So this is basically the whole thing about it being a statutory body. Okay, then we take a look at the Central Information Commission ka composition kya hai. What is the composition of the Central Information Commission? What is the composition of it? Right? The Central Information Commission shall consist of the Chief Information Commissioner, CIC again this can be called. This is the head of the commission, the Chief Information Commissioner, and such number of Central Information Commissioners not exceeding 10 as may be deemed necessary. You see the point? So you have, for example, within the CIC, what is the composition? First there is the Chief Information Commissioner, CHIC, plus you can have a total of 100 members, a total of 10 members in addition to the CHIC as information commissioners. Okay, so you see the point. This is the what you can call the designation of information commissioners or Central Information Commissioners, and then there is the Chief Information Commissioner, right? So it's very similar in its structuring to the Election Commission of India. When you take a look at the Election Commission of India, you get a sense of, you know, the Chief Election Commissioner, and then you have the 2 election commissioners. Similarly, you have to have 1 Chief Information Commissioner, and in addition to that you can have up to a number of 10 information commissioners. You can have a total maximum capacity of Central information commissioners to the maximum capacity of 10 members under section 12 of the RTI Act. Okay. So currently the composition, let me just take you through the composition of the RTI Act currently. RTI Act, the Central Information Commission currently, if you just go to browser and just type yourself Central Information Commission, you will get a basic knowledge of everything that is there about the Central Information Commission, right? So you, for example, go to the About Us, and we can take a look at the organizational structure. You see the point? So you have the Chief Information Commissioner, then you have 10 Information Commissioners, then you have the Secretary, then you have the Additional Secretary, and these are the ways in which they are subgrounded. So this kind of a, if you want to take a snapshot of this, you can take a snapshot of this. This is taken from the Central Information Commission website itself, in which you can see how the basic areas of it are covered, right? So we don't want to go into too much of, let's say, if for example, I'll give you a sense of it. Chief Information Commissioner, Additional Information Commissioner, Secretary, Additional Secretary, and then for example, you have Joint Secretary of Administration, Law, MNR, PNB, etc. Right? So you have these kind of subunits which are opened up in this sense. So these are the ones which are responsible for taking up all forms of appeals from the PIOs and supervision of the PIOs in the structures. Okay? Make sense? If you want, you can take a snapshot of this, of the CIC. Right, so this is the current composition of the CIC. You have the Central Information Commissioner, you have the Chief Information Commissioner, Shri Y.K. Sinha, who is an IAS officer. Then you have 4 Information Commissioners, right? So in total, you have today 1 plus 4, the composition of CIC, which can extend up to a maximum of 1 plus 10. This is the maximum which can be obtained, is currently at 1 plus 4. Okay, so these are the details which are given about the Information Commission currently. Right? Okay. You have these, Wajahat Habibullah was the first Chief Information Commissioner of India. Then you are this is a list of all the previous Chief Information Commissioners and Information Commissioners respectively. That's a list which has been given over here. Okay. Right? Okay. Going back to the RTI Act, we understand the composition of it. Okay. Now take a look at the appointment in which they are made. The Chief Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioners shall be appointed by the President on the recommendation of a committee consisting of, right? So this is the point. Now, basically what we want to in a way impress over here is this, that let's say for example, imagine a situation in which, let's say a government of India is heading a department, let's say for example, the coal secretariat, right? So you have, for example, the coal ministry, which has the coal secretariat under it. Now let's say there are indications that there is some kind of a scam while the allocating of the coal mines. Okay, there are indications that there is some kind of a scam while coal allocation. These are the indications which have been made. Scam while coal allocation. Okay, so one of the ways in which you can take a understanding about the scam is by filing an RTI with the PIO. Right. Now let's say the government has one particular, let's say, minister who is involved in the scam personally, that he is taking his own money out of the scam. Okay. Matlab you see government which has a minister who is personally involved in this kind of a scamming activity, right? So if the information comes out, it is going to expose the minister. So he influences the PIO to not give the information out. He says कि section 8 में या section 9 में या किसी भी तरह से in the later parts of section 24 give some excuse with regard to that the information cannot be revealed. Why the information cannot be revealed? Because the exemptions on the RTI are applicable and therefore this information cannot be revealed. Right? So eventually if a person is trying to file an RTI and expose a scam, and if the PIO does not give the information, he will have to go against the actions of the PIO to the Central Information Commission, CIC. That is where he'll have to go, right? But if the CIC with its Chief Information Commissioner plus let's say 4 information commissioners are also under the control or the influence of the minister, and let's imagine that this entire thing is completely under control by the government, but there are many people in the government of India who are involved in this scam. For example, there was a web series by the name of Harshad Mehta recently, Scam 1991, in which the indications were made that up to the level of the Prime Minister of India at the time was involved in the scam, because even he was receiving some money from the background. These were the allegations made upon the Prime Minister at the time. So you can really have a big scam in which big government officers are also involved. And if they are freely able to appoint the CIC, right? If they are freely able to appoint the CIC, then the problem is obviously going to be the case that the CIC will not be impartial or neutral, and he will also be influenced by the government into not revealing the information. So when you go to the CIC asking permission for the information, the CIC can deny that permission, stating that the government of India is not stating that section 8 ka exception hai ya kuch aur hai, but it will deny the information. Now, there is no higher authority than the CIC. You will have to go to the court, which is a different game altogether, right? So the question that we're trying to target at this point of time is how should we ensure the independence of the CIC, okay, that it is not under the influence of the political parties or the executive or the government, right? So CIC has to be composed of people who are independent and who can act independently without being the favorites of the government, because the government can appoint a favorite of them, or being what you can call the people who are let's say just in a way moving towards a nature of things in which they may be afraid of the government or may depend upon the government for their benefit, etc., etc. So you need fiercely independent people to be in the Information Commission, and that's the whole question about appointment. How do you make that kind of a independent choice, right? And for that, what this RTI Act has suggested is that there shall be a committee, okay, which will be there, who will recommend the members to the president, okay, and that committee will include the Prime Minister, who shall be the chairperson of the committee, the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and a union cabinet minister to be nominated by the Prime Minister, right? So this is a 3-member committee which will be involved in selecting the information commissioners. Okay, let me read it again. The Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioner shall be appointed by the President on the recommendation of a committee which will have the Prime Minister and the Union Cabinet Minister to be nominated by Prime Minister. So you already have 2 votes given to the government, but there will be a leader of opposition. Okay, and where there is no leader of opposition, for example, if there is no opposition party which has the 10% strength, for the purposes of removal of doubts, it is hereby declared that where the leader of opposition in the House of the people has not been recognized as such, the leader of the single largest group in opposition of the government in the House of the People shall be deemed to be the leader of opposition. So, if there's a lack of opposition in the House under one single political party, then the second largest political party after the ruling party will be considered the leader of opposition. So, this is basically what you will have to do. So, you have a kind of a proportion by which you have two people from the government and one people from the opposition who can work for the appointment of what you can call the chief information commissioners, right. So, this is basically what we are looking at the appointment protocol of it, right. So, factoring has been given to the leader of opposition who's presumed to be standing against the government, who is possibly involved in a corruption, because if a corruption is exposed, the leader of opposition will have a better, you know a political advantage out of it, because the one political party which will take the most advantage out of the government being exposed of being involved in corruption is the leader of the opposition or the opposition. So, you have a situation in which this kind of a thing must have to take a very clear and proper shape. So, that's what basically we are taking a look at in terms of the appointments. Okay. Now, take a look at what is known as the general powers of the Information Commission. What are the general powers of the Information Commission? The general superintendence, direction and management of the affairs of the Central Information Commission. The general superintendence, direction and management of the affairs of the Central Information Commission shall vest in the Chief Information Commissioner, who shall be assisted by the Information Commissioners and may exercise all such powers and do all such acts and things which may be exercised or done by the Central Information Commission autonomously without being subjected to directions by any authority under this act. Okay, please read this carefully again. This talks about the general powers of the Information Commission. The general superintendence, direction and management of the affairs of the Central Information Commission shall vest in the Chief Information Commissioner, who shall be assisted by the Information Commissioners and may exercise all such powers and do all such acts and things which may be exercised or done by the Central Information Commission autonomously without being subjected to directions by any authorities under this act. Okay, so it talks about the independence of the Central Information Commission and the Information Commissioners. Okay, ठीक. Section 12 subsection 5 says the Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioners shall be persons of eminence in public life with wide knowledge and experience in law, science and technology, social service, management, journalism, mass media or administration and governance. Okay, take a look at this please. This is a kind of what you can call as a minimum qualification for people to become members of the Information Commission. Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioner shall be persons of eminence in public life with wide knowledge and experience in law, science, technology, social service, management, journalism, mass media, or administration and governance. Okay, this is the part. Okay, take a look at the next part. The Chief Information Commissioner or an Information Commissioner shall not be a member of Parliament or member of the legislature of any state or union territory as the case may be, or hold any other office of profit or connect with any political party, carrying on any business or pursuing any profession, right. So, again another aspect of the establishment of political neutrality of the Information Commission. Political neutrality of the Information Commission. Yeah, take a look at this please again. That the Chief Information Commissioner or Information Commissioner shall not be MPs, MLAs of holding office of profit or in any other way associated with any political party. Right? That's a given over here. Clear? Make sense? The headquarters of the Central Information Commission shall be at Delhi, and the Central Information Commission may, with the previous approval of the central government, establish offices at other places in India. Clear? So this is section 12 with regard to the Central Information Commission. You get a sense of it. Let me just take a look at all of these things together and then we can note them down. In section 12, it talks about the constitution of the Central Information Commission. Then you talk about the composition of it. Then you talk about the appointment of it. Then you talk about the what you call independence, which is given under section 4, 5 and 6. And then we talk about the headquarters of the chief of the Central Information Commission. Right? So we'll take a look at it. Very simply, you can put the next subtitle over here as Central Information Commission. Again, I'm mentioning this as a statutory body. You can put the subtitle over here as Central Information Commission. Okay, and within the Central Information Commission, you can start writing section 12. Okay, section 12. First, write down Constitution. Point number A, Constitution. Write down. Point number A in Central Information Commission is about the Constitution of the Central Information Commission. Write down. Constitution. Write down. The Central Information Commission, brackets, you can write down CIC. We will use the abbreviation CIC going forward. The CIC is constituted as a statutory body. Under the RTI Act 2005. The CIC is constituted as a statutory body. Under the RTI Act 2005. Is constituted as a statutory body under the RTI Act 2005. CIC is constituted as a statutory body under the RTI Act 2005. Which means that it shall be constituted by the central government. Shall be constituted by the central government. By the central government. Shall be constituted by the central government, implying the mandatory nature. Implying the mandatory nature of its formation. Implying the mandatory nature of its formation. Implying the mandatory nature of its formation. Okay? Implying the mandatory nature of its formation. Okay. Then after that, write down point number B, composition. Point number B, write down composition. Okay. Please write down composition mein. There shall be one chief information commissioner. There shall be one chief information commissioner. There shall be one chief information commissioner, CIC. In fact, sorry, write down in brackets CHIC. Chief Information Commissioner, CHIC. Chief Information Commissioner, CHIC. And in addition, there can be a maximum of, and in addition there can be a maximum of, and in addition there can be a maximum of 10 Central Information Commissioners. and in addition there can be a maximum of 10 Central Information Commissioners. Okay, you can write in brackets IC. In addition, there can be a maximum of 10 Central Information Commissioners. 10 in Central Information Commissioners, comma, under that there are public administration, sorry, don't write public administration, there are secretaries and registrar with subunits for the public administration of the commission. For the public administration of the commission. For the public administration of the commission. Under that there are secretaries and registrars with subunits. There are secretaries and registrars with subunits for public administration of the commission. For public administration of the commission. Full stop. Okay? Okay. Change the paragraph after this and write down. Just change the paragraph and write down. Next paragraph, write down. Currently, the total composition of the CIC is at 5 members, with 1 CHIC plus 4 ICs. Okay, write this down. Currently, the total composition of the CIC is at 5 members, with 1 CHIC and 4 ICs. As we have seen on the paper, the website of the Central Information Commission, that there are currently 5 members. Okay. You can read more about this particular fact when we come back to this. Mr. Y.K. Sinha is the Chief Information Commissioner of India. Okay. Okay. Is the video आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है? Okay, so we are Sorry for the glitch. It's just information communication technology. Okay, so this is the point that we're trying to take a look at, right? Take. Now we are after this composition, we can write down the C point number C with this, which is appointments. Okay, you know, it's best to memorize all of these things in the class itself. You know, we're going at such an easy pace. We are expecting you to try to memorize this in the class only, so that you don't have too much to look up. You can revise later on, but isko yahin pe karke khatam kar do. Just finish it off in the class itself. Okay, write down appointments. Write down. CIC needs to be independent. CIC needs to be independent from political control. Needs to be independent from political control. CIC needs to be independent from political control. From political control in order to realize the spirit of transparency. In order to realize the spirit of transparency of government functions. In government functions. Spirit of transparency in government functions. Spirit of transparency in government functions. Spirit of transparency in government functions, which are at the heart of RTI. Which are at the heart of RTI Act 2005. Which are at the heart of RTI Act 2005. Okay. Full stop. Section 12. Okay, just change the paragraph. Change the paragraph, please. Press enter. Change the paragraph. Section 12. Section 12 states that the CHIC and ICs states that the CHIC and ICs are to be appointed by the President. Are to be appointed by the President. Are to be appointed by the President. Upon the recommendation of a committee. Upon the recommendation of a committee. Are to be appointed by the President upon the recommendation of a committee. Upon the recommendation of a committee, which is composed of 3 members. Which is composed of 3 members. That is the Prime Minister, comma, Leader of Opposition of the Lok Sabha, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and one Union Cabinet Minister nominated by the Prime Minister. One union cabinet minister nominated by the Prime Minister. One union cabinet minister nominated by the Prime Minister. One union cabinet minister nominated by the Prime Minister. Okay? That's the composition of the committee. Full stop. Okay? That's the part about composition. Then change the paragraph within this. Within this only change the paragraph and take a look at another aspect of this. Section 12, subsection 5. Okay, write down. Section 12, subsection 5 states that persons who are to be appointed as CHIC and IC, must be persons of eminence in public life. Must be persons of eminence in public life. Must be persons of eminence in public life. With wide knowledge and experience in law, science and technology, with wide knowledge and experience in law, comma, science and technology, comma, social service, comma, management, comma, journalism, comma, mass media or administration and governance. We are writing directly from the RTI Act. The Chief Information Commissioner and Information Commissioner shall be persons of eminence in public life with wide knowledge and experience in law, science and technology, social service, management, journalism, mass media or administration and governance. Or administration and governance. Okay. Okay, so this is about the appointment. Now write down the final point, which is point number D. Which talks about, this was point number E, right? Point number C, this was what? Write down point number D. Point number D talks about independence. Independence of CIC. Independence of CIC. Write down. As mentioned above. As mentioned above. Independence of CIC. As mentioned above. As mentioned above. It is important for CIC to be independent of political/executive control. It is important for CIC to be independent of political/executive control. It is important for CIC to be independent of political/executive control. Political/executive control. political slash executive control. Therefore, 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 RTI Act makes provisions to secure it. RTI Act makes provisions to secure it. Therefore, RTI Act makes provisions to secure it. Provisions to secure it. Full stop. Okay. For example, Section 12 subsection 4 states that, for example, Section 12 subsection 4 states that, for example, Section 12 subsection 4 states that all the powers exercised by the CHIC and the IC, all the powers exercised by the CHIC and the IC must be done with full autonomy. Must be done with full autonomy. Must be done with full autonomy without being subjected to directions by. Must be done with full autonomy without being subjected to directions by. Must be done with full autonomy without being subjected to directions by any other authority under this Act. Full autonomy without being subjected to directions by any other authority under this Act. Any other authority under this Act. Any other authority under this Act. Okay. And Section 12 subsection 6 states that, and Section 12 subsection 6 states that, and Section 12 subsection 6 states that, Section 12 subsection 6 states that the CHIC and ICs should not be MPs, shall not be MPs, comma, MLAs, comma, hold an office of profit, or be involved with any political party, or be involved with any political party, or be involved with any political party in any way, or be involved with any political party in any way, or be involved in any political party in any way, full stop. Be involved in any political party, involved with any political party in any way, full stop. Okay. So you see the point. If you have a question, for example, which says that describe the need for, think of this like a UPSC question. Like, take a look at this kind of a question. Describe the need for independence of CIC, full stop. Elaborate how such independence Elaborate how such independence is secured by the RTI Act. Okay, this is a question of 150 words and 15 marks. You know how to answer this question, right? If this is a question of 150 words and 15 marks, you know how to answer this question. Are we clear about it? Describe the need for the independence of CIC. Elaborate how such independence is secured in RTI Act 2005. Are we clear? ठीक, चलिए. Now we are moving on with regard to section 13, which is also going to be a part of the independence. So don't close the chapter upon independence. We are still writing the chapter upon independence. Okay. Take a look at article section 13. Term of office and conditions of services. The Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office for such term as may be prescribed by the central government and shall not be eligible for a reappointment. Okay, so what it says is, again, the fact that he is not eligible for reappointment adds up to the fact that he will not be able to gain any political favors, because generally you are, let's say, trying to be reappointed, and for that matter you try to, because the government decides your reappointment, because the government is sitting in the committee, so you try to be the favorite of the government to extend your tenure. Who does not like a free government job, right? So to address that kind of a situation, you take a look at how the what you call the actions of the information commissioners are not to be motivated by a demand for reappointment. That's what basically it says over here. The Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office for such term as may be prescribed by the central government and shall not be eligible for reappointment. Okay, this is a part of what the government of India, what section 13 of it says. Now, here we take a look at a little bit of a pointer. Okay, when we take a look at section 13, and this is a little bit of a current affair part upon it. Section 13, as we see, talks about the term. The tenure, let's call it, of the Chief Information Commission. Now you see this part over here, for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. Okay, so generally, for example, you see for all the constitutional bodies given in the Constitution of India, for example, a member of parliament, the tenure of the member of parliament is described by the Constitution of India. The tenure of the member of parliament is 5 years as described by the Constitution of India. But there are other places also where the tenure of the, let's say, constitutional body, a tenure of the constitutional body is not given by the Constitution of India as a description. For example, for a governor, it has been given as a pleasure of the president. Pleasure of the president. That governor shall hold the office until the pleasure of the president. But there is a tenure, but he can be removed before that tenure by the president if he so pleases. Okay, which means whimsically, without any reason whatsoever, he can be removed as a pleasure of the president. Okay, the question that we are asking is that once the governor, the idea is, for example, this, that if you have, for example, a CIC which has taken its shape, and let's say it is doing some kind of a information, making it public, which is going to be not good for the people sitting inside the government. It is always good for the government, but people who are sitting inside the government, it is not good for them. Okay, so we are taking a look at what it is that the CIC may do which may be impactful for the government. And if, for example, if the CIC is doing something which is going to be hampering the interest of these people sitting inside the government, these people inside the government will use the methods of the government to exit the CIC, right? To make the CIC exit. You see the point? Get my point I'm trying to make? That you have the tenure of the constitutional body. If this tenure is not guaranteed or fixed, okay, but there has to be some kind of a guarantee of tenure, what you can call that. For example, let's say you see in the case of the CAG, right, or even in the case of the Election Commissioner of India, Chief Election Commissioner, it is said in the Constitution that both of them can only be removed on the like grounds as a Supreme Court judge. You see, for example, Article 124 gives the provision for the removal of a judge of a Supreme Court. So, once a Supreme Court judge has been appointed, he cannot be removed by the president. He has to go through a very intricate procedure of removal, which has to take the parliament into account for acknowledging and, in a way, consolidating the removal of the Supreme Court judge. You see the point? And therefore, it is not easy to remove a Supreme Court judge, and so are the CAG and the ECI also given that kind of a security that they cannot be removed by the government or a person in the government. It has to go through a tedious process, right? Now, in the original draft of the RTI Act, in section 13, it was said that the CIC, which is the Chief Information Commissioner, and the Information Commissioners are going to hold the office let's say here, take a look at this. The Chief Information Commissioner is going to hold the office. What is written over here, for such term as prescribed by the central government, has been brought in an amendment to the RTI Act. Okay, this has been brought as an amendment. Take a look at this footnote. Okay, this footnote signifies that this provision was not there previously. This provision has been introduced in the RTI Act by amending the RTI Act. So let me just go to the provision, footnote, point number 1 over here. Take a look at this. This Amendment Act was made in 2019, right? And what is written over here is, for a term of 5 years from the date on which he enters upon his office, right? So in the initial RTI Act, the tenure of the CEC or the CIC, CHIC or CHIC was fixed for a period of 5 years. Okay, but this fixed tenure guarantee to the CHIC for a period of 5 years has been altered by the amendment made to this in 2019. Okay, the year 2019, in which it said that the Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. Now, let me show you, for example, how this can work. Let's say, for example, there is the central government of India. Let's say, for example, within the government of India, there is a person who is, let's say, involved in some kind of a corruption. Let's say this is one of the cabinet ministers who's, involved in some kind of a scam or a corruption. Okay, let's say there is an RTI being filed with regard to this corruption. Okay, in the PIO. But the person here, he establishes a nexus with the PIO, and the PIO refuses to give the RTI. Okay. What does this person do? He takes the RTI to the CIC. Okay. Now let's say, for example, the CIC who is sitting over here, he is looking at the matter closely and he wants to reveal the information. Okay. But now what this person can do, let's say, for example, if this particular political person can exercise some power over the government of India, let's say he has a lot of vote bank and he can influence the political party that he is going to be very important for them, and it is not going to be good for them if his scam is exposed, then he can make the government of India under section 13 remove the CIC. By stating this, for example, the government of India can give a notification that the term of the CIC is going to be, let's say for example, the CIC was appointed on 1st January 2023. Okay, this is when he was appointed. Right, on the date of his appointment, the tenure was, let's say, given by the central government to be that of 3 years. Okay, let's say for example it is 2nd of January 2024. This is the current date. So what the central government can do is, by changing it in the notification, it can reduce it from 3 years to 1 year 2 months. You see the point? Which means that now on this date, when this kind of a thing is boiling hot, when the CIC is preparing to release all the information, the central government can change the notification and say that the 3 years period is going to be changed to 1 year 2 months, which will have the effect of making the CIC leave his position by the end of March 2024, because that is 1 year 2 months. You see the point? So on that kind of a thing, indirectly a power has been assumed by the government to keep changing the tenure of the CIC according to the convenience, in which if one particular CIC is acting in a kind of a hyper exposing manner, then the government, what it has to do, let's say for example if there is a CIC who's covered 4 years of his tenure, okay, the tenure prescribed is 5 years, but let's say at the end of the 4 year he is doing some kind of an expose of the government, then the government, central government, by a simple public notification can list that the tenure of the CIC shall be 4 year 2 months, right, and force him to retire at the end of this period before he can actually do what he wants to do. So in this sense, what is being objected by a lot of critics is the fact that the powers of the Chief Information Commissioner have been diluted by introducing the amendment in section 1(3) of the RTI Act. Please take a look at this again with the explanation that I have tried to give you in the background. You see, there is a very serious criticism which was made to this Amendment Act when it had come out in 2019. Term of office and conditions of service. The Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office for such term as may be prescribed by central government. Okay, central government can keep changing the prescription on the tenure of the CIC. You don't even need to have a date. You see the point? Matlab, let's say what you don't even have to have an amendment to section 13 by passing it through parliament. The power can be exercised by central government only by issuing a notification in the Gazette of India, which means that you don't have to amend the act. The central government can take a purely executive decision about describing the tenure of the Chief Information Commissioner, right? And this does in reality give the power to the central government to make a Chief Information Commissioner leave the position in the event that the Chief Information Commissioner may be acting a little too, obsessed with the fact that he wants to relieve the information out with the government and give it to the public. Okay, you get the point? This is what section 13, this is the importance that we are trying to understand with regard to section 13 of the RTI Act 2005. Right? Okay. Provided that no Chief Information Commissioner shall hold office as such after he has attained the age of 65 years. So this is the maximum age which is given to a, what you can call a Chief Information Commissioner. Right? Now, take a look at information commissioners. Every information commissioner shall hold office. This also has been subjected to an amendment for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. Before the amendment in 2019, even the information commissioners had a security guarantee of 5 years. Okay? The information commissioners had a security guarantee of 5 years. But with now the amendment for such term as may be prescribed by the central government. Okay? And this says that every information commissioner on vacating his office under his subsection be eligible for appointment as the Chief Information Commissioner. So if you are an Information Commissioner, if you are retiring as an Information Commissioner and if you have not completed the age of 65 years, you can be eligible for reappointment as a Chief Information Commissioner. But a Chief Information Commissioner cannot be eligible for reappointment as a Chief Information Commissioner, and an Information Commissioner cannot be eligible for an appointment as an Information Commissioner. Okay. Provided further that where the Information Commissioner is appointed as a Chief Information Commissioner, his term of office shall not be more than 5 years in aggregate as the Information Commissioner and the Chief Information Commissioner. Okay, so matlab in total his job at the Information Commission cannot be more than 5 years, keeping an aggregate of both 2 plus 3. Let's say for of Information Commissioner, he's 2 years and he's Chief Information Commissioner for 3 years. His maximum cannot go beyond a period of 5 years. Okay, so this is the part of section 13 that we take a look at. You see, for example, Mrs. Sushma Singh, who was the Chief Information Commissioner from 2013 to 2014, right? 19/12/2013 to 21/5/2014, was previously also the Information Commissioner. This is the term that she spent as being the Information Commissioner, right? So, Information Commissioner can be eligible for reappointment as a Chief Information Commissioner, right? Same is correct about Sri Vijay Sharma, who was the Information Commissioner from this period to this period, and then he was reappointed as the Chief Information Commissioner, right? But this period in aggregate cannot go beyond a point of 5 years. That's the point which we have to take an understanding of very clearly. Okay. Take. You get a sense of what I'm trying to understand over here. So you see about section 13, we take a look at what is known as the tenure of information commissioners, right? So you can write it with the same heading, which is independence, and we just mentioned briefly about the tenure. Independence, write down. Tenure of information commissioners. We are dealing with the question of independence of information commissioners. Okay, so write down. Just change the paragraph, don't change the point, write down. Section 13 states that the maximum period for which the CHIC and IC states the maximum period for which the CHIC and IC can hold the office is to be prescribed by the central government from time to time. Is to be prescribed by the central government from time to time. Is to be prescribed by the central government from time to time. Is to be prescribed by the central government from time to time. Okay? You get the point? The maximum period for which CHIC or IC can hold an office is to be prescribed by the central government from time to time, comma. However, this was not the position in the original Act of 2005. This was not the position in the original Act of 2005, where the maximum term was fixed at 5 years. Where the maximum term was fixed at 5 years. Semicolon. This position about maximum term being determined by the central government. This position about the maximum term being determined by the central government. This position about the maximum term being determined by the central government. Maximum term being determined by the central government. Maximum term being determined by the central government is brought in by a 2019 amendment to the act. By a 2019 amendment to the act. Is brought in by a 2019 amendment to the act. Okay, ठीक है. Paragraph change. The CHIC and the ICs cannot be reappointed at their incumbent posts. Comma, the ICs are eligible to be reappointed. The ICs are eligible to be reappointed as CHICs. The ICs are eligible to be reappointed as CHICs. The ICs are eligible to be reappointed as CHICs. Provided that their aggregate tenure at the CIC should not exceed 5 years. Provided that their aggregate tenure at the CIC should not exceed 5 years. Provided that their aggregate tenure at the CIC should not exceed 5 years. Aggregate tenure at the CIC should not exceed 5 years. Full stop. Provided that their aggregate tenure at the CIC should not exceed 5 years. Full stop. Okay, next point. No CHIC or IC can serve beyond the age of 65 years. The age of 65 years. The age of 65 years. No CHIC or IC can serve beyond the age of 65 years. Okay. ठीक है. Now we can take a look at the next part within this framework, which is the removal of CHIC and ICs. How can they be removed? Because removal again becomes an important part of the securing, like, what basically what you need for public servants, for civil servants to be able to work in a very clear and categorical independent capacity is to ensure that they will not be shunted out of their position if they're acting independently and honestly, you see. So if you can remove a particular person because that person is acting against the government, he will never have the confidence to do it. But if a person enjoys that whatever they can do will not lead to their removal, they can have the confidence to do. So therefore, a simple rule is that you have to make a removal of a person very difficult, and you should not leave the removal of the person in the hands of the people they are, exposing or subjecting transparency against. Okay, and so that is why naturally the RTI Act has given a very clear categorical understanding of how the CHICs can be removed. But as we have seen that the amendments made to section 13 have invented a very ingenious way to remove the information commissioners by, as I pointed out to you, that if you want to remove one particular person, you just change the period and bring it close to when he's doing something, and then you can have the person forcibly retire. But let's take a look at the section 14 of the RTI Act. Removal of Chief Information Commissioner or Information Commissioner. Subject to the provisions of subsection 3, the Chief Information Commissioner or any Information Commissioner shall be removed from his office only by order of the President on the ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity, after the Supreme Court, on a reference made to it by the President, has on inquiry reported that the CIC or any Information Commissioner, as the case may be, ought on such grounds to be removed. Right? What does it mean over here? It means to say that the fact is that, for example, I was giving you the mention about why it is supposed to be that the removal should be tightly regulated. Right? You cannot just remove a CIC because he is exposing you as the government of India. So removal should be tightly regulated to ensure the independence of the ability of the CIC to act in an independent manner. Okay. Now what it says is that the government cannot remove the CIC unless the President has given an order that there is a proved misbehavior or incapacity by the CIC, right? Either the, let's say for example, the CIC has an activity of a moral turpitude, right? Either the CIC is found to be involved in moral turpitude, or he has exhibited some kind of incompetence. You see the point? So this is the point that is being raised over here. Either CIC is involved in some kind of a moral turpitude. You see, when we talk about, just let me, for example, rephrase this. Let me just infographically demonstrate to you the removal of a CIC. And you please take good note of this right now. Huh? Let's say if there is a CIC which is being questioned, that his actions are corrupt, or he is himself not fit to become a CIC, or he is not acting in the interest of the RTI Act. Take a look at this. This CIC can be removed on two grounds. What are the grounds? Either he must have misbehaved, or he must have proved an incapacity. Misbehavior and incapacity has to be proved. We'll come to that later. But just let me, for example, explain to you what misbehavior and incapacity means. The important term here is misbehavior or incapacity. So let's say, for example, if a person is very competent, if a person is very intelligent, very skillful, very intellectual, he is able to understand things very properly, but his character is wrong. He's using all of that intelligence and that skill to become privately powerful, not doing it for the country. Then you will have a case of misbehavior, which is a ground of removal of the CIC. Similarly, you can imagine another person who has excellent character, who is very moral, very virtuous, who is very upright, but he is incompetent. He's not able to do his job properly. He doesn't have the skills, he doesn't have the technicalities, he doesn't understand it, he's not good enough to act on his abilities. Okay, then you will have a case of incapacity despite of be him in well behavior, and both of these are individually problems for the department. If you are a person of very good behavior but incompetent, you cannot do your job. If you're a person who is very competent but of a very bad behavior or character, then you cannot do your jobs. These are two grounds, and the operative term over here is or, either for misbehavior or for incapacity, not a combination of the two. Can a CIC be removed? This is the same thing which goes on for a a Supreme Court judge or a CAG or a ECI, etc. Proved misbehavior or incapacity, either a fault of the character or the fault of the competence. Okay, so this is basically what the grounds are. Now the question is, this should be a proved misbehavior or incapacity. Matlab, there must be some kind of a investigation or inquiry or trial which must have established that this person is actually done or under in a way this person is actually exercised some kind of a misbehavior or incapacity. Okay, and for that investigation, how does it prove itself? That is the question. Now, the proof is that, let's say for example, the president can refer the case of a misbehavior or incapacity of a CIC to the Supreme Court of India. Okay, and the Supreme Court can launch an investigation in the matter. You see the point? Supreme Court can launch an investigation into the matter. And upon the finishing of the investigation, the Supreme Court can present the report to the President. And if the Supreme Court has said that it is yes, proved or incapacity of misbehavior, the President can then remove the CIC. You see the point? This is how it follows. The grounds are misbehavior, incapacity. How do you investigate whether these grounds are proved or not? The President can refer the case to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, after investigation, can give the evidence or the conclusion to the President, and the President, on the basis of the evidence and investigation done by the Supreme Court, can remove the CIC. This is a simple chart explaining how the CIC can be removed. Does it make sense? Okay. So this is section 14 subsection 1. You're getting a point of what I'm trying to say over here. Then we have section 14 subsection 2, which talks about suspension. Now what it says is that in the duration, right, during the time that such kind of an investigation is going on, in that time the President can suspend that CHIC or IC, right? So he can be, there's a difference between termination and suspension. Termination is final, suspension is temporary, right? So what it says is that the President may suspend in the time when the such investigation is going on before the Supreme Court, etc., that particular CIC. Now, if the investigation says that the person has not done anything wrong, he can be reinstated. But if the investigation says that something has been wrong, his suspension can be converted into his termination, right? That's what given over here. Section 14, subsection 2. Please take a look at this again clearly. Just very simply read section 14 subsection 1 and subsection 2 with regard to the removal. Again, I am repeating it. We are dealing with a very important statutory body. CIC is not only a part of the RTI Act, but is also the list of statutory bodies that we have to cover with regard to the governance subject. So please take a look at it properly. Okay, section 14, subsection 1 and subsection 2. Okay. Now these are the ways in which you can, for example, take a look at disqualification. So one of the ways of removal is that he is of misbehavior or incapacity, but there are conditions under which a CHIC or IC can be disqualified. Okay, this is very similar to what was given in Article 102. Okay, take a look at this. These are removal by disqualification. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, the President may by order remove from the office of the Chief Information Commissioner or any Information Commissioner if the CIC, HIC or IC maybe is an adjudged insolvent, has been convicted of an offence which in the opinion of the President involves moral turpitude, engages during his term of office in any paid employment outside the duties of his office, is in the opinion of the President unfit to continue in office by reason of infirmity of mind or body, has acquired such financial or other interest as is likely to affect prejudicially his functions as the Chief Information Commissioner or Information Commissioner. Okay, take a look at this. This is very simple to remember. These are disqualifications. Okay, disqualifications. These are not proved misbehavior or incapacity, but if he does certain acts, he can be rendered to be disqualified. So for this kind of a removal, you don't have to go to the Supreme Court. The President himself can exercise a discontinuation of the CHIC or the IC on the basis of this kind of a disqualification. Okay, and section 4, subsection 4 of section 14 includes a particular activity in misbehavior. Okay, so it says that if anyone does this, what is written over here, it will be a kind of a misbehavior. Please read this section 4, subsection 4 of section 14, and this completes the CIC for us. If you have an understanding of these aspects, you have a very good and clear understanding control over the Chief Information Commission, CIC. This is section 12, 13 and 14, chapter 3 of the RTI Act. Okay, so this is not a way in which a president can remove him, but this, for example, if a person is interested in any agreement or contract made by the government, if a person who's a CIC is also a member of a company or a board of director of a company which is taking government contracts, then this will be an example and illustration of misbehavior. So Supreme Court will take this definition into account and judge that person has involved in misbehavior if while he is a CIC, a CHIC or the IC, he's also involved in contracting with the government. He's, let's say for example, a thekedar who's taking government contracts. So obviously he has a conflict of interest already in a particular matter, and therefore he may not be totally transparent or independent with regard to information, right? So it will be included as a definition of misbehavior. Right. So this is what we're taking with regard to removal. Let's finish writing notes upon this part. Removal of the CIC. Write down removal. Removal of CHIC plus IC. Write down point number A. Section 14 lays out the process. Section 14 lays out the grounds and process by which, sorry, just one second, please reframe it, I'm sorry. The grounds, comma, disqualifications which can lead to removal, and the process of such removal, and the process of such removal. And the process of such removal. Okay, this is point number A. Take, write down point number B after this. Point number B. The grounds for removal are proved misbehavior, or proved incapacity. The grounds for removal are proved misbehavior or proved incapacity. Are proved misbehavior and proved incapacity. Grounds for removal are proved misbehavior or proved incapacity. Okay. Point number C. Conditions for disqualifications. Conditions for disqualifications. Conditions for disqualifications include conditions for disqualifications include insolvency, comma, infirmity of body and mind, comma, offense entailing moral turpitude, etc. Okay. Insolvency, comma, infirmity of body and mind, offense entailing moral turpitude, etc. Insolvency, infirmity of body and mind, offense entailing moral turpitude, etc. Point number C. Okay. Now point number D. Process of removing on the grounds of misbehavior and incapacity. Process of removing on the grounds of misbehavior and incapacity. On the grounds of misbehavior and incapacity starts with the President making a reference of such a case to the Supreme Court. Starts with the President making a reference of such a case to the Supreme Court. Reference of such a case to the Supreme Court, comma, the Supreme Court conducts an investigation. To prove misbehavior or incapacity. To prove misbehavior, incapacity. If it is so proved, it is notified to the President. If it is so proved, it is notified to the President. It is notified to the President, who, on the basis of this, who on the basis of this proof, can remove the, in fact, shall remove the CIC, CHIC plus IC, shall remove the CHIC plus IC, shall remove the CHIC plus IC. Okay. Next point. After this, write next point. E. Disqualification can be finalized directly by the President. Disqualification can be finalized directly by the President. Directly by the President. Directly by the President. In the case of disqualification can be finalized directly by the President in the case of any ambiguity, his discretion will suffice. His discretion will suffice. Full stop. His discretion will suffice. Full stop. Okay. So by this we have covered section 12, 13 and 14 of the RTI Act, which talk about a very important statutory body by the name of the Central Information Commission, CIC. Okay. You see the point? You've taken the look at the Act together. We've taken a look at the Constitution, the composition, the appointment, the powers and functions, the fact of the independence of the Chief Information Commission, Central Information Commission, and the points that we are writing under independence, including the elaborate point about removal. Right. So thus we have covered section 12, section 13 and section 14. This is the most conclusive set of notes that you will carry for understanding how the statutory body of the Chief Information Commission, Central Information Commission operates, right, and what is the role and responsibility given to the Central Information Commission. And this I've already told you, right. The last part that we will cover in the RTI is very simply a very important part that all of you should know: process of appeal. That how is it you can take an appeal from the PIO to the CIC, and what are the decisions that must be given to CIC on. So if information is not released by the PIO, how is it that you can take that appeal to the CIC? That is the question that we are going to discuss the next. Okay. Understood? That is the last part of RTI. Then the RTI would be complete. I am assuming that by the end of this class on RTI, you would be in your own capacities empowered and capacitated to write RTIs yourself. You have read the technicalities of the RTI Act directly, and therefore you are not going to be completely unaware about how to file an RTI and what an RTI can achieve in terms of transparency and information. Okay. Take. Let me take some questions that you have been asking. Okay, Delhi's CM's RTI regarding PM's degrees and subsequent fine imposed on him by the Gujarat High Court, an instance of misuse of Section 11 of the RTI Act. Well, yes, third party information, that kind of a thing will come. More than that, it is going to be an exemption under Section 8 of the RTI Act. You see, there are sections 8 where there are provisions about personal information, etc., which will be a kind of a way for the authorities to deny the RTI, and of course the Gujarat High Court imposing a fine. I'm not sure I can make a political statement about this, but the way in which we are taking a look at this part about the RTI obviously has some political connotations behind it, but I'm glad that you're figuring out how this works in real life without us mentioning each specific topic on this. Okay, I'm happy to see this example come up as an instance of RTI and the possible abuse of it, or the possible abuse of the power of the authorities under RTI. Okay, what is a zero FIR? Okay, I'll explain it to you. Okay, let me just take the questions with regard to RTI and come to a zero FIR. Okay, writs issued by SC and HC and RTI an individual do the same thing despite having many differences between them. No, well, not surely. That's a good question. I may want to clarify a point over here. See, let's say if this is a government department, let's say if this is a district hospital. If you think that the district hospital is not doing something correctly, okay, there are two ways of understanding it. First of all, you have to say that what the district hospital is doing is violating your legal right or fundamental right. Only when your legal right or fundamental right is being violated by the district hospital can you go to the Supreme Court or High Court. With regard to the Supreme Court, you can go only for the fundamental rights. With regard to High Court, you can go both for legal rights and fundamental rights. Okay, Article 32 and Article 226. These are writs. But the question is, when you are going to the Supreme Court, how do you prove that your legal or fundamental rights are being violated? Okay. Now, one of the ways to do it is that before you go to the Supreme Court, you already file an RTI with this and you get the evidence in your custody and you can present this evidence before the courts. You see the point? The fact is the point. See, this like, think of it like this. Generally, the Supreme Court or the High Court, once you go to it, they will ask the district hospital to prove whether the legal right has been violated or not. But then they will also themselves ask for them to give them some information. Okay. Now, the point is that sometimes the district hospital can tell the Supreme Court that we cannot give this information to you because this information is sensitive. This information has bearing on the public's morality, etc., etc. Or we can give you this information, what is sometimes known as a sealed envelope, that we will not be able to make this information public, but we will give it to you in the sealed envelope. Or what we can do is they will give information, but it will take a lot of time, etc. And all these three factors crumble the way because eventually the courts may not be able to extract all the information out of government departments because of, let's say, they're raising a case about sensitivity of the information, they're giving information only to the court, not to be put before the clients, or it is a very time taking process because the court will have to then monitor all the information coming, etc. So what the RTI Act does is very simply this. It says that you are directly empowered to get the information. So why don't you come to us with the information? It's better for us. But the courts are saying that why don't you do half the job that I am supposed to do? I am over, populated. I am over, burdened about things, and I am, spending a lot of time on a lot of things anyway. I may not be able to do this at this point of time. So why don't you first file an RTI, get the evidence, and then file a writ upon me? And on the basis of them, I can do 2 + 2 4 and issue a direction under the writ petition. You see, this is where the whole idea about citizen participation comes into activation, and that's the point that we're reading with, right? Remember the structures of governance that we had discussed in the start. It talks about moving from vertical accountability to horizontal accountability and monopoly of information to transparency of information, which means that citizens are going to be an active participant in this kind of an activity. Now, citizens sometimes feel that something wrong has happened to them. They go to the court, and the court, because it is so arrested by the, by the processes under which it is working, citizens say कि court कुछ नहीं करता है, there is nothing coming out of court, and हमने सब करके देख लिया, and everything is a failure, and this government is corrupt, the courts are incompetent, etc. The law has given you the right, the given you the power to participate in this kind of an activity. So why won't you do that and then come to the court rather than expecting the court, which is already overburdened with so many things, to extract it out itself? It will take time. Justice may not be served in proper senses, etc. So you do your homework with regard to citizen participation. Frankly, after a law having been made, if you don't know how to file an RTI before you file a writ, don't be too surprised or too dissuaded when your writ petitions are not getting any clarity, or your actions, the writ petitions are not doing the things that you want them to do, because you obviously could do 50% of the task, file an RTI, put it before the court, then you see the activity of the court. There's a very clear change in the expression of the judge when he sees RTIs attached with the petition. He knows that half his work is done. He can rely upon this and immediately finish it off, and he will do it without giving another date in some cases altogether. So that amount of citizen vigilance, citizen participation is an important aspect, right? But that's a very good question, Nimai. Okay, Vishwajit, is the CIC and SIC composition and function is similar or a little bit different between them? Well, yeah, they're more or less similar, just mirror images of the central and the state, right? That's the point about it. More or less they are similar, but yes, one thing which is different is that for CIC you have the central government, and for SIC you have the state government, right? So everything happens exactly the same way between CIC. There's a committee which is composed of the chief minister at the level of SIC, which elects the members, etc. Now, in the original act, the term was given to both the CIC and SIC to be of 5 years, right? For the CIC, it was changed to be notified by the central government. So analogously, for the SIC also it should have changed for being notified by the state government. But no, this was also given in the hands of the central government. This is one difference that you have to note with regard to the difference between the CIC and the SIC. This difference does not exist in the past, but this is the difference that you have to note. Everything that central does for a CIC, state does for SIC, including the 5-year tenure which was fixed, but in 2019 the central government not only has a possibility of prescribing a time limit for the CIC, but also for the SIC. You understand? Make sense? That's the only difference there is. What is the difference between mass media and journalism? Well, mass media is focused more upon popularization of the news. Journalism is more focused upon the precision of the news. Journalism includes historical aspects of something, development on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. You create a journal. It's like writing a personal diary of events at a long period of time. Mass media takes single events of today and exposes them to the people without necessarily providing the background to it, right? So it's more sensational, the mass media gets you interested, it gets you invoked into reading things, etc. It's like an initiation into doing things. It's a bang which makes you let's say interested in doing things, interested in knowing things. Journalism is a slow, painstaking exercises. It's a discipline of maintaining a set of things with regard to what is happening. So for example, a prime time news reporter is a mass media guy, and a person who writes editorial or writes columns in a newspaper is a journalist. That's the point. And therefore for TV you use the term mass media, for newspapers you use the term journalism. Then this amendment had taken away the independence of the CHIC, which is being conferred to it by section 12. Yes, in a way it has. That's true in an observation. Okay, can we write directly that the government has diluted the functions of CSI after 2000? No, you cannot write directly. You have to imply it. You don't have to write directly. You cannot write directly. You should not write directly. As section 13 CIC, how CIC is politically free? Well, that's a good question. The section is before you. You take a decision whether the CIC can be politically free or not. Okay. If CHIC is the only proven to be incompetent, will president remove the whole? No, no, no. Only that one person will be removed. The entire team will not be removed. Only the person, whether the CHIC or IC, proved to be under misbehavior incapacity will be removed. Not everyone. Uh, Kaushik, is it possible to discuss about the types of majority? Sure, we can take a look at that. No problem. We'll do that. Section 1, Article 100 of the Constitution. We'll take a look at it. Is there any penalty if someone files false RTI if it wasn't discussed yesterday? The only penalty is the rejection of RTI. The penalty cannot be given by the PIO. The penalty can only be given by the Central Information Commission or the court in this particular case. And that kind of a thing is not covered under the RTI Act, but it's a legal development which the courts apply, that if people are making frivolous RTIs, etc., they can be penalized. But that is not a statutory provision under the RTI Act. It is a court-made law which allows the court, for the High Court and for the CIC, to make some kind of a penalizing of it. But in this particular thing, the only penalty is rejecting. Can a CHIC reappointed as IC? Well, no, no. CHIC cannot be reappointed as the IC. Is it binding on president to follow SC's report in case of removal of CIC? Yes, yes, it is binding upon the president. The very fact that the president is the one who refers to it implies that the president is open to the fact that he will be removed. You see, the Supreme Court cannot take the report upon himself all on his own accord, suo moto. It has to be referred by the president. So the fact that the president is referring in the first place implies that he is open-minded about accepting the fact that this person will be removed. So in that case, once the president has started the process, then he is bound by the results of it. He cannot exercise his discretion even after the report of the Supreme Court judges that this person is, involved in some kind of a misbehavior or incapacity. Okay, right. So this was a Central Information Commission for you. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll come back in 40 minutes and 45 minutes, and we cover up the parts about how to file an appeal. Right, that's the last part that we're going to take in the RTI, as to how we file an appeal, and that you have to understand, by which we will cover all the aspects of RTI. Then I can discuss one of those things. You have a personal data protection bill, which is being debated in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha recently, and we'll take a look at how that has an implication of the RTI. Yesterday, Anil had asked a question, and therefore I'm going to make that current update topped up with what we are dealing with the RTI today. All right, let's take a break. Thank you.